Anyway, please start your visualization. Give you a bit more time to visualize the merit field and being surrounded by all the holy beings. So let's generate our motivation. And recalling the plight of all of us in samsara, even though at this particular moment we may have a much better situation than many other beings, still we're all in the same boat of going up and down in the three realms due to karma and afflictions. And our great fortune is that we found the teachings that show us the path out of it. And the thing to do now is to practice those teachings. So our mind puts up many roadblocks that create hindrances. And sometimes there are external hindrances too. But all of that is the material with which we practice the path. So it's not that first we get rid of the hindrances and then we engage in Dharma practice. Dharma practice is the process of working with the internal and external hindrances. And so let's generate the joyous effort to do that, knowing that causes bring results. And if we create the causes, they will bring the concordant results. So if we practice with joyous effort, slowly we will progress along the path. And so with a bodhicitta motivation to spur us along, let's learn what that path is and how to generate joyous effort. So it happens very often with practitioners that when we face a problem, either inside or an external problem, we think, now I can't practice. Yeah, I don't feel well, or I have too many responsibilities, or it's snowing today, or, I don't, my mind is unhappy, or, somebody pushed my buttons. So all of these things are interfering with me practicing the Dharma. Yeah. So, if only all these hindrances would go away, then I could really sit down and study and meditate and really get somewhere. That's what we think. Okay. Well, Good news is you don't have to wait to practice the Dharma. All these hindrances are what we practice with. Okay. In other words, the meaning of practicing the Dharma is to work with the afflictions, to subdue the afflictions. Yeah. What happens when we have external hindrances? We're sick, we can't get a visa, da-da-da-da-da. Okay? Then our mind gets unhappy and our mind creates more problems for ourselves. We get upset, we're angry, we feel sorry for ourselves. Those mental states, learning to work with those mental states is the meaning of practicing the Dharma. Okay, we tend to think practicing the Dharma is you put on robes, you have your mala, you have your prayer wheel, you do circumambulations, you do prostrations, even though your mind's who knows where, you count gazillions of mantras. We think practicing the Dharma is all this external stuff. That is not practice unless our mind changes when we do it. Otherwise, making prostrations, you can go to the gym. Yeah, it costs more to go to the gym. Making prostrations is cheaper to get in shape. But that's not why we do prostrations. Okay? So it's very important to remember this. Yeah? Instead of thinking, oh, I don't feel well. Oh, yeah, you don't feel well? Okay, lie down. You can still think about the Dharma. You can still visualize the Buddha. You can still generate love and compassion and send those out to other living beings. Yeah. Having a stomach ache, having a backache doesn't prevent your mind from being in a virtuous state. What prevents our mind from being in a virtuous state is when we get upset about not feeling well, when we fall into self-pity, when we, use not feeling well as a way to get around doing things we don't want to do. That mind is what the hindrance is. Okay? The not feeling well isn't the hindrance. Yeah, that doesn't mean you don't feel well, so you have to stay in bed and sit up in perfect meditation position even though you don't feel well. No, you can lie down if you don't feel well. But lying down doesn't mean you don't keep your mind in virtue. Okay? And same thing with, having an unhappy mind. Well, why are we unhappy? Well, it's usually because we're not getting what we want. That's the number one cause. Okay, check that one first. Yeah, if it's not that one, then see what it is. Yeah, but usually my experience is when my mind is unhappy and I don't want to practice, it's because I have some expectation of how the world should be and how I want it to be, and I'm not getting that. Yeah. So what's the hindrance? Is the hindrance the world just doing what it does? Or is the hindrance my high expectations and my getting irritated? What's the hindrance?
The mind getting irritated.
Yeah, it's the mind getting irritated, isn't it? Yeah. Well, and what's the false expectation? That I should be able to control everything. But actually, before I control it, it should automatically be what I want it to be, so I don't have to control it. Yeah. Controlling is plan B, but actually plan A is everything should go the way I want it to be from the very beginning. Yeah? Is that a little bit of a ridiculous way of thinking? Yeah, think about it. Yeah. And yet we hold on to that. It should be the way I want it to be. Okay, so that's why, you know the story about Lama Atisha watching the guy circumambulate the stupa and then prostrate and then recite the text, and Lama Atisha keep telling him, oh, that's nice, but you should practice the Dharma. The whole point is practicing the Dharma means transforming the mind into something virtuous. Okay? So, yeah, I don't know about you, but when my mind is unhappy, it is, you know, it's just like Shantideva said at the beginning of chapter 6. Yeah, the fuel for anger is an unhappy mind. Yeah? So, why is my mind unhappy? Like I said, it's usually because things are not happening the way I want. Yeah? And that's based on my wrong conceptions of how the world should be. Okay, so what's the way to change that? It's not to get angry, it's to change my mind. Now, I may have to be assertive after I've calmed my mind down. I may have to be assertive and act in an appropriate way, you know, to move things along. But I can do that without being angry. Yeah. Of course, it's so much easier to be angry, but it's so much more miserable to be angry. Yeah, because when we're angry, we're not unhappy. We're not happy. We're miserable. Yeah. If we're able to lessen the anger, then our mind is happier. Yeah. Then, you know, if you need to push or do something, you can do it. Yeah. But that's the real practice, and that takes time to develop. Okay? Because we hear the teachings, we say, oh, yes, that makes perfect sense. And then, yeah, something doesn't go the way you want, and we just go back to our old way of dealing with it. Yeah. My mom had a great expression. I don't know if your parents had this. Don't knock your head against the wall. Yeah. It's actually quite profound when you think about it. I didn't appreciate it at the time, but, you know, I think I really should do Words of My Precious Mother, because there's a lot of things that she said when I was growing up that actually have a profound Buddhist meaning. Okay, like don't knock your head against the wall. Why? Because the wall is going to win. Yeah, don't bother getting angry at the world because conventional reality is going to win. Yeah. Things are what they are. Okay, so here's where joyous effort comes in, is that it is what gives us the ability to meet the occasion. Yeah. And we've seen that what prevents us from meeting the occasion, yeah, of course the afflictions, but specifically the 3 kinds of laziness. Okay? Just wanting to lie around with a little dash of self-pity. Yeah. Self-pity's so nice, isn't it? Yeah. You can kind of curl up and have your comfort food and your blankie and, yeah, your own Buddha bear. Yeah. Yeah. And the second one, keeping ourselves very busy, running around, feeling important because we are running around doing all sorts of things. Yeah. Everything except look at our mind and transform our mind. And then the third one, the big one, well, all of them are big, but this one, just feeling discouraged. Yeah. So yesterday, when somebody said, is there somebody here who does never feel discouraged? And I can't remember, actually thinking like that, but I've thought about it, afterwards. And I think, what has really helped me a lot is just thinking about causality. Yeah. And that effects arise from causes. And if you create the causes and you create the conditions, the effects will come. Yeah. And so what's the use of feeling discouraged? Yeah. When they call it the infallible cause and effect. Yeah. Infallible karma and its effects. It means that causes and conditions bring results. So if we know that, what's the sense of getting down on ourselves or thinking the path is too high or anything like that? It's just we haven't created the causes yet. So what's to get depressed about that? Yeah. It's like you want to be a millionaire, but you don't want to go to work. Yeah. So, okay, what I got to do is create the causes and conditions. And if I do that, slowly the effects will come. You plant the seed, you water it, you fertilize it. You don't have to dig the seed up every day to see if it's starting to grow. Yeah. You just are happy creating the causes. And then your life goes on. Yeah. And then slowly results come. Yeah. And sometimes it takes a longer time for different seeds to ripen, but they will when the conditions come about. Okay. So we have to overcome, the hindrance, the three kinds of laziness. And we're at the section now where Shantideva is going to tell us how to do it. Okay. So we're almost at that section where he's going to give us 4 points, But what he's telling us now is that too. So verse 23, yeah. Even doctors eliminate illness with unpleasant medical treatments. So in order to overcome manifold sufferings, I should be able to put up with some discomfort. Okay? In other words, this verse is attacking our preference to being wimps. Okay? So we think, especially with a war going on, we think bravery is, I've got my AK, whatever it is, and I'm going to be brave and go to war and shoot down the external enemy. And that's how I'm brave and putting up with discomfort. Yeah. Okay. From a Buddhist viewpoint, we went through those verses already. Shantideva says those people are going to die anyway. Why are you bothering to kill them? Yeah. And killing them is not really, getting you any closer to awakening. It's getting you further away. Okay. So that's not bravery. Yeah. Bravery is learning to deal with our own discomfort. Bravery is not, doing that external thing that makes you look, like Rambo. because you may wind up going to the lower realms. Yeah. Whereas somebody who's really brave, who's going against the afflictions, yeah, who's really thinking about the meaning of their life and the meaning of their actions, contrary to what society pushes us to do. You know, that person is the brave person, according to Shantideva. Okay? And that person will have good rebirths and progress along the path. Okay? So then that means we need to have a little bit of discomfort. And sometimes it's physical discomfort. You know, you have to sit in meditation position. Sometimes it's because your robe keeps falling down and you have to go like this. Wouldn't it be nice if this robe just stayed on? But it's not. Okay? So, you know, and it's uncomfortable sometimes working with the afflictions because, you know, it's like you look at your mind and you see how your mind gets twisted up and stuff. And sometimes when you have enough space, you can look at that and say, my mind is really ridiculous. Yeah? Have you ever had that? And you look and it's like, what in the world am I hanging on to? Why am I so upset? This is ridiculous. Yeah. And it's uncomfortable seeing that because we think of ourselves as intelligent, yeah, good practitioners who understand and follow the Buddha's instructions. And then lo and behold, we look at our mind and our mind is opposite of what the Buddha is teaching. Yeah. And then we're even further embarrassed because everybody else already knows that about us. And we're just seeing the light, you know. Yeah. I mean, you live in community. It's true, isn't it? Everybody knows your degree of anger and how you show anger. Everybody knows what you're attached to and how you go about getting what you're attached to. Yeah. We're the only one who doesn't know a lot of that stuff about ourselves that everybody else sees, you know. They know when we are in control mood and we're going to control everybody around us. We just don't see it. And then the light comes. Oh, yeah, I think I'm being a little bit controlling. Yeah. Well, no, I need to be because this, you know, everything's going to fall apart unless I control it. Okay. And so then we have all of our regulations. Yeah. Turn the light switch off as soon as you go out of the room. Don't leave it on for 2 seconds. Put the spatulas here. Yeah. Clean up your mess immediately. Yeah. You know all of our rules. Yeah. We have a whole policy book full of them. Yeah. And they're useful. They're useful guidelines. But what isn't useful is that we make them more than guidelines and we cast them in concrete. And so with our preferences and our way of thinking about things, how we go about getting what we want, we cast it in concrete. And then, of course, other people are not very happy when they encounter a concrete wall getting put in their nose. And they say, huh? Yeah. You take your concrete wall back. And then we go, oh, see, nobody appreciates me. Anyway, or whatever you do, you know. Maybe you put 2 concrete walls because you're going to win the argument. Yeah. Okay. So the real Dharma practice is working with all of this and transforming the mind. Yeah. And learning to have, we experience a little bit of discomfort. You think of the situation of other people on this planet, and the amount of discomfort we experience is so minor. And we experience it in the process of practicing the Dharma, so it's worth it. Other people experience discomfort in the process of creating negative karma. Okay. 24. Yet the Supreme Physician does not employ common medical treatments such as these. With an extremely gentle technique, he remedies all the greatest ills. So the Supreme Physician is the Buddha, who is the greatest doctor to our mind. Yeah. But he doesn't, pull our tooth out without any anesthesia or do surgery with, open heart surgery without any anesthesia. The Buddha is very gentle. The Buddha did not say, go out and give your body to the local tiger. Yeah? Find the nearest tiger and donate your body. The Buddha did not say that. The Buddha, when he was a Bodhisattva, showed the example of how compassion works. That when you have very profound compassion, this is what you're capable of doing without experiencing great hardship. That's what the Buddha is saying by that story. We take that story of, the Buddha gave his body to a tiger. I should be able to do that right now too. Okay, where is that thought coming from? I should be able to do exactly what the Buddha's doing. Yeah, it's like somebody in kindergarten who says, I should be able to plan the rocket to Mars. Yeah. Can you plan the rocket to Mars when you're in kindergarten? I don't think so. Yeah. I'm beyond kindergarten. I still can't do it. Actually, I don't want to. But, why do we put these shoulds on ourselves? Yeah. So it's very important. And I see this, the longer I practice, how important it is when we hear certain teachings to make sure we understood the point of the teaching correctly. And that's why it's very helpful to discuss the teachings with other people, to contemplate them ourselves and to discuss them with others, to make sure that we've understood the point correctly. Similarly, when we hear stories, we need to contemplate the story and talk about the meaning with our friends to make sure we understood the point of the story correctly. Because if we misunderstand, we get really tied up in knots. And here, what he said, Shantideva is saying about the Buddha, with an extremely gentle technique, he remedies all the greatest ills. Yeah. So the Buddha gives us extremely gentle techniques to change our mind. Okay. Now, what do you mean extremely gentle techniques? Yeah. What it means is the Buddha knows that we can only do what we are capable of doing at one time. Yeah. And we are not always very capable of assessing what we're capable of doing at one time, at a particular time. Sometimes we overestimate what we're capable of doing. Sometimes we underestimate what we're capable of doing. Okay. But the Buddha understands. The Buddha is not standing there going, come on already, you should have those realizations. Yeah. Why haven't you found that tiger and given your body yet? Shame on you. If you're saying that to yourself, ask yourself why you're clobbering yourself in that way. My brother said something that really stuck with me. He's a doctor. And, so sometimes he works in radiology, but sometimes he's working with people who are dying. And sometimes there's a push to confront people who are dying and let them know you're dying. You got to look at this and get your everything in shape, and confronting them, making them recognize that they're dying. And he said to me, people will understand that they're dying only when they're ready to understand it. And that really stuck with me when he said that, because people will take the next step when they're ready to take it. Sometimes our job is to encourage them, to nudge them when they need nudging. Yeah. But not to set down a rule and push. Okay. And this is said by the great pusher. Yeah. You want somebody who pushes? Yeah. You're looking at her. Okay. So, but to really see, you encourage, you nudge. And that's exactly what the Buddha does for us. He encourages, he nudges, he gives us the teachings, and then he leaves it up to us to practice them. Because he knows he can't make us practice. Yeah. So he doesn't knock his head against the wall. Yeah. And say, I've been teaching these beings for how many eons since I got enlightened, and they still don't listen. Oh, he's not going to waste his time with that. Okay? He teaches us gentle techniques. Yeah. That if we see what we're capable of doing, we put this into practice, then we can take the next step. Okay? So it's like, after my surgery with my hip replacement, okay? So I had to learn to climb stairs again. Now, you always let's go up that, there's stairs that are, the usual standard height. Then there are stairs that higher. I want to start with the stairs that are higher. That doesn't work so well when you've just had a hip replacement. You got to start, my PT would bring out these little platforms that were this big. Practice stepping on those and stepping down and stepping on them and then gradually increased it, And I remember the first day I climbed the stairs at the outside the PT department. I was like, I got all the way up the stairway. Now, how did I do that? By practicing with these small platforms that he kept putting there. Okay? So this is exactly what the Buddha does. And so, to nurture your mind and be satisfied. Oh, I got, And when I was learning to prostrate, which you see I still can't do really well, yeah, I had to start with, I started with the Chinese. Well, at first I just bent over. Then I couldn't even get lower. Then, to the Chinese ones that are this. Then I found a smaller one like this. Then Venerable Losang very kindly made something that was like about 2 inches, and I mastered that. And then it was remarkable going from 2 inches to flat on the ground was really hard. Yeah, those last 2 inches were really hard. And you can see sometimes I can't push up directly from the floor. I have to take an extra step in doing that. Okay? But you have to grow gradually. Because otherwise you try to bow and getting down is really easy. That part of the prostration is no problem. It's what you do after that. Yeah? Okay. 25. At the beginning, the guide of the world encourages the giving of such things as food. So here he's telling us all the gentle techniques that the Buddha teaches. Okay? So the guide of the world, the Buddha, encourages the giving of such things as food. Okay. So you start with the food you don't like. It's very easy to give that. Okay? I do so much charity at lunch. You can have the chickpeas. You can have the black beans. You can have the cabbage. What's left? So yes, I give all these things to everybody else. So you start maybe that way. Okay? Later, you start to give things that you like. Yeah, thinking that other people may like them too. Of course, we don't know. They may not like them, or they may be against the diet of the other person, but we start giving things. So there's a story about the Buddha who was dealing with one person, one lady who was very stingy. I think it was my previous incarnation, and had her practice giving a carrot from one hand to the other. Oh, I have to give the carrot away to my left hand. Oh, what suffering. Okay. And giving it back. And just to practice giving. And then pretty soon, you can give the carrot to somebody else. Yeah. Then you can maybe try an apple. Yeah. Then you can try the chocolate cupcakes. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Do you give chocolate cupcakes to the people you love or the people you want to die? They are so unnourishing. Yeah. So maybe that's the meaning of passive aggressive. You really hate somebody. It's like, here, have these delicious chocolate cupcakes. Okay. But so at the beginning, the guide of the world encourages the giving of such things as food, and because food is the easiest thing to give usually, that's also why we offer water on the altar, because it's easy to give, except when your water system goes off. Yeah, I was in Dharamsala one time when that happened. And then, making offerings of water on the altar became much more difficult. Later, when accustomed to this, to giving food, one may progressively start to give away even one's flesh. But you don't go from giving away an apple to giving away your whole body. There's many degrees in between that. Okay? So we just go gradually, and give things away as we are comfortable doing it with a happy mind. And sometimes we have to nudge ourselves. Yeah. Because it becomes, after a while, it becomes so incredibly apparent when the mind says, but I don't want to give it, that you can't stand it. And then you make yourself give it. And as soon as you give it, it's like, what was going on that I thought this was so difficult? Okay, so one may progressively start to give more and more. Okay, so it's the same with keeping our precepts. You start and then but you start with something that's a little bit challenging. Don't start with just doing what you're capable of doing. Yeah, and it's that way also in something I learned about starting the Abbey is you have to start with very clear guidelines and very clear discipline. And then when you need to make exceptions, you don't start with something very loose and then try and make it tighter afterwards. People don't like that. So it's the same way with keeping your precepts. Do a little bit more than you feel comfortable with, and then, but not too much more. And then you can, up it. Don't start with putting a straitjacket on yourself. But don't give yourself excuses either. See, this is the difficult point, isn't it? Yeah. 26. At such a time when my mind is developed to the point of regarding my body like food, then what hardship would there be when it comes to giving away my flesh? Okay? So it's showing you build up the strength of your mind in terms of what you can give. And when your mind is really developed and you're not attached to your body, and you have some power over the death process, then regarding your body as food that you can give away very easily, then that makes sense. But before that time, it doesn't make sense. Okay? So maybe somewhere along the line, you give a kidney, something like that. I just was reading in our local newspaper that the person who works, I don't know her, she has a post in our local government. She's the one who sends out the ballots and things. She's giving a kidney to somebody else. Yeah? And I thought, wow, that's really wonderful, that kind of generosity. Yeah. And so you build up to practicing generosity in that way. You don't say, okay, where's that tiger? When you're not capable of doing it with a happy mind. Okay. Then 27, having forsaken all transgression, there would be no suffering, and due to wisdom, there would be no lack of joy. But now my mind is afflicted by mistaken conceptions, and my body is caused harm by unwholesome deeds. So this relates to the previous verse. When our mind is developed to the point of looking at our body, giving away our body in the same way as we would give away food, then, there's not going to be any suffering. And when it says having forsaken all transgression, what is it that causes suffering? Our negative karma. So when we have better control over our body, speech, and mind, we don't transgress our precepts so much, then we're not going to have as much physical suffering. And then without having so much physical suffering, it's easier to give the body. And due to wisdom, in other words, as we learn to practice the antidotes and feel firmer in really living according to the Buddhist worldview and transforming our mind in the way that the Buddha teaches, so through generating that kind of wisdom, then there's not going to be any lack of joy in giving the body or doing some of these things that we're incapable of doing right now. Okay, but now my mind is afflicted by mistaken conceptions. So why do I have no joy if asked to, even give a kidney or give $1 million or, who knows what? Why do I have no joy and think that the Dharma is so difficult? It's because my mind is afflicted by mistaken conceptions, such as everything should happen the way I want it to happen. Yeah, and I should get everything I want. So, when there's those kind of mistaken conceptions in our mind, then our mind is not going to be very happy. Yeah. In fact, our mind's going to be pretty miserable most of the time, because how often do we really get everything we want? And even we get what we want, how much are we satisfied with it? Yeah, this is what people are asking about the war in Ukraine. Putin wants, eastern Ukraine. Is he going to be satisfied with that? I don't think so. Yeah. He takes all of Ukraine. Will he be satisfied? I don't think so. The way he's thinking, his idea of who he is and the place of Russia in the world, it's going to be difficult to find satisfaction. Mm-hmm. Okay, my mind is afflicted by mistaken conceptions, and my body is caused harm by unwholesome deeds. So when I break precepts, when I do the 10 non-virtues, then it often comes out as sickness, as discomfort, as pain, as, who knows what. And also, just the fact that we have a body, even if you don't break one precept in this life, the fact that in previous lives, we have a lot of negativity that's coming with us, such that we took a body under the influence of afflictions and karma, means that we're going to have physical discomfort and sickness and aging. Yeah. I mean, that's just a given. But it's so interesting. We think that somehow we can overcome it with our superior human intelligence. Yeah. We don't see birth as the cause of aging, sickness, and death. Yeah, we don't. And so you get, what's it called? Cryogenics. When you freeze the body or part of the body in the hopes that medical science in the future will find a way to revive you and make you live again, as if the body is who you are, and when they froze you, your mind was still in the body. I wonder, at what point in the death process do they freeze the body? And has the mind left, or is the mind there feeling very uncomfortable, frozen, like in the cold hells? Or has the mind left the body, in which case, even when you defrost the body and medical science finds the way to rejuvenate you, that, your mind's going to be there. Yeah. And it's apparently quite expensive to do that. And so some people cannot afford to freeze their entire body. So they freeze their head. Helpful to have a guillotine, I guess, here. And then I don't know what they do with the rest of the body, probably burn it, bury it, and they just freeze the head because they think the head is the person because the brain is there. Yeah. Walt Disney's frozen. Yeah. He was one of the frozen things. Yeah. Can you imagine if they defrost him, the latest Disney movie? Okay, then 28. This verse is a very beautiful verse. So the previous verse was talking about us, but now my mind is filled by mistaken conceptions, so there is a lack of joy, and my body is caused harm by unwholesome deeds, so I'm going to suffer. 28 is talking about the Bodhisattvas, as their bodies are happy due to their merit, and their minds are happy due to their wisdom. Even if they remain in cyclic existence for the sake of others, why would the compassionate ones ever be upset? So this is like how strong the mind of a bodhisattva is. Okay, so their bodies are happy due to their merit. So you accumulate a lot of merit, then, it influences the body and you don't get sick as much when you attain, there's different levels where different bodhisattvas can attain a mental body, and when you attain that, then definitely kind of no physical pain. And these great bodhisattvas, their minds are happy due to their wisdom. When you can directly perceive emptiness, when you can directly perceive impermanence, then your mind doesn't have all sorts of unrealistic expectations because everything doesn't appear so concrete to you. So there's space to play. There's space for flexibility in their minds. And so their minds are happy due to wisdom. And they can look at situations, and even they look at the most unbearable suffering for sentient beings. They don't get depressed over it. Yeah. They realize that the suffering, the misery, the dukkha of samsara exists because the causes for it exist. But it isn't a given because the causes can be overcome. And so if you overcome the causes, then you don't experience the dukkha. So they don't get depressed when they see their own suffering, or if they, their own dukkha, or what other beings would consider dukkha, and they don't get depressed when seeing the situation of other sentient beings. Okay, so this thing of personal distress that we so often fall into, like I can't bear to see their suffering, bodhisattvas don't have that, because that personal distress is a hindrance to being compassionate. Because when we have personal distress and can't bear to see another's suffering, then we cannot help that person because we're too wrapped up in our own suffering. So bodhisattvas always have an optimistic mind, and they don't expect in their optimism that problems are overcome immediately without creating the causes. They don't have those wrong expectations. Okay? So we like to think of miracles Yeah. So our definition of a miracle is I get what I want without creating the cause, and I get it immediately. Yeah. If you were watching a Saturday night Seder, they arrived at the Red Sea, with the Pharaoh's army behind them and the Red Sea in front of them. And then miracle. Without creating the causes, the Red Sea opened. They walked through, the Red Sea closed, and all those other people died. I don't consider that part such a miracle. Yeah. But that's what we think of as miracles. Yeah. It has to happen quickly. Taking a long time to happen is not a miracle. Yeah. It's immediate. So again, our impractical mind. Yeah. If things happen immediately, it's because a lot of causes and conditions were created in the past. There's this talk, one of the big discussions in Buddhism is sudden enlightenment. Can you gain enlightenment suddenly? Okay. So we hear sudden enlightenment, we think it means, again, without creating the causes, you just sit down, you're a baby beginner, you don't even know how to meditate. You sit down, roll your eyeballs back in their sockets, and boom, you are enlightened. Yeah. And Venerable Shenyan from Dharma Drum Mountain, he and His Holiness had a dialogue in New York many years ago. I don't know, some of you may have been there. It was really beautiful. And this topic of sudden enlightenment came up. And Master Shenyan explained that the meaning of sudden enlightenment is not you sit down and you get realizations. Okay. It means that it's, there's a couple of things, how it plays out. One is it's your first baby glimpse of reality. And after you have that glimpse, then you have to go back and practice the gradual path to accumulate all the merit and to deepen the realization of, because that little first glimpse didn't last very long, and it probably isn't a direct perception. Yeah. So you have to go back and accumulate the merit and deepen your understanding of what you perceived, and make sure you're realizing emptiness completely and you have the correct emptiness. Okay. And then so the sudden awakening is that first baby thing. And then you practice the gradual path, and then you get full awakening. Okay. And His Holiness was saying, so that's what Venerable Shenyan said, Master Shenyan. Then His Holiness said, there are stories in the Buddha Dharma about people who attained awakening in this life. So we hear the story of Milarepa, he's a good example. But then we also learn that in the early years of his life, he killed a lot of people through black magic. So how is that possible that he attained enlightenment in that life? And then there's, other stories of other people. They're very rare stories. It's not common. But His Holiness explained that in that kind of situation, it's because the person in so many previous lives have accumulated merit and meditated on emptiness, that then all that merit, all the effort they put in previous times with something not requiring so much merit in this life, or so much effort in this life, based on that huge store of merit and much deep meditation in previous lives, something small can like make the whole thing come together. But he says that's very, very rare that happens. Most of us do the gradual path. So it's quite similar to what Master Shen said. Yeah. But we always think we are the special ones who accumulated merit and studied and did all of that for 5 million lifetimes. Yeah. So we're the ones who are going to sit down and bam like that. Yeah. And then they will recognize us as Rinpoches. And then you get to put on a hat. And you get to wear brocade and sit on a high throne. Whippy-doo. Yeah? Whippy-doo. You're really what do they say? Hot? Yeah? Okay. So I love this because, as their bodies are happy due to merit and their minds are happy due to wisdom, yeah, even if they remain in cyclic existence for the sake of others, which if you really understand the Buddhist worldview, remaining in cyclic existence is horrible. And to do it when you don't have to, you're doing it for the benefit of others. Yeah. Even when they remain in cyclic existence for the sake of others, why would the compassionate ones ever be upset? So they can do that, and they're not upset at all. Wow. And to hear that verse, and you don't think, why can't I do that now? I'm a failure. You think, wow, I'm capable of doing that in the future. If I practice well over time, however long it takes, it doesn't matter. But if I continue to practice over time, I'll be able to do that in the future. Isn't that amazing that somebody could do that? I mean, to me, it doesn't have to be me that does it. It's just that anybody can do that. It's just amazing. And of course, if somebody else can do it, and I have the recipe book right here, then that means that I can do that too. Not tomorrow. Probably not this life. Highly unlikely in this life. Probably not next life. Who knows when it'll happen? But it is possible. And if I slowly accumulate the causes and conditions, that will happen. And so that is a reason to be happy. Yeah. When you have this long-term view, then, and you see what you are capable of slowly developing, then it's amazing. And your mind is very joyful. Yeah. Whereas when we only look short time and we compare ourselves to others and we expect ourselves to have attained something, then we're always going to be kind of miserable. Mm-hmm. So 29, due to the strength of the awakening mind, the bodhisattvas consume their previous transgressions and harvest oceans of merit. Hence, they are said to excel Vishvavakas. Okay, so what enables us to do this? To be like the compassionate ones who would never be upset staying in samsara for the benefit of others. What is it that enables that? The bodhicitta. Okay, and so due to that bodhicitta, the bodhisattvas consume their previous transgressions. So remember chapter 1, the benefits of bodhicitta, what a powerful force for purification of negativities it is. Yeah. So that's why the bodhisattvas can do this. Because with bodhicitta, you're working for the benefit of all sentient beings. And that's different than working for the benefit of one sentient being who happens to be me. Yeah? So just that thought of bodhicitta makes what you do highly meaningful. And also, if we've, since we've developed the compassion of a bodhisattva, when we look around and choose where it is best to put our energies, we can really make good decisions made with compassion for others so that we can do the things that are going to be of the greatest benefit for other living beings. Yeah. So it's two things. It's bodhicitta that helps make whatever we do virtuous, but it's also bodhicitta and the great compassion that help us see where it is best for us to put our energy and have the greatest effect in what we give. Yeah. Okay, so due to the strength of the awakening mind of the bodhicitta, the bodhisattvas consume their previous transgressions. So remember, everything can be purified. Yeah, this is Mahayana. Everything can be purified. And harvest oceans of merit. So bodhisattvas can create these oceans of merit. Hence, they are said to excel the Shravakas. So the Shravakas, that's a Sanskrit term for the hearers or listeners, those who hear the Buddha's teachings and sometimes repeat it, but do not always practice the full extent of the teachings. So those are the people who will attain arhatship. Yeah, those people realize, the arhats realize the same emptiness that the Buddhas realize. Yeah, and that starting with the path of seeing that the Arya Bodhisattvas realize. They realize the same emptiness. Yeah, but what differentiates them from the Shravakas is the bodhicitta. And so the incredible amount of merit they're creating by practicing with bodhicitta. And that merit is what supports the realization of emptiness, so that the bodhisattvas can overcome not only the afflictive obscurations, but also the cognitive obscurations. Okay. The Shravakas cannot overcome the cognitive obscurations. They have the same realization of emptiness, but the mind is not powerful enough to use that realization to overcome the cognitive obscurations. The way we get the mind powerful enough is through the accumulation of merit. And that's done through bodhicitta. And so that's, the real distinguishing factor at the end of the path between the arhats and the Shravaka arhats and the Buddha. The Buddha is also considered an arhat. Okay. So, questions, comments?
Sometimes I get mixed up between trying to be humble and then downplaying my capabilities, because I feel like if I say, awakening is possible in this life, then another voice is like, who are you? Why don't you get a reality check? And so sometimes I have trouble distinguishing what's a realistic assessment than what's this kind of misguided attempt to be humble.
Okay. So here we have, things to distinguish. It's a very good question. What's the difference between self-confidence and arrogance? And what's the difference between humility and lack of confidence? Yeah, those two things. So there, because it's very easy to get them mixed up in our practice. So the conclusion I've come to is when you can correctly assess, or should I say this, it's not an on and off light switch. The more you can correctly assess what your faults are and what your talents are, the more you can correctly assess kind of where you're at and what you're capable of doing at one particular time and what you're not capable of doing at that time. The more we are capable of doing that, the more we can have a realistic self-confidence. Okay? So a realistic self-confidence knows what we're capable of doing now and knows what we're not capable of doing now. When we don't have a realistic sense of ourselves, then if we're suffering from low self-esteem, how do we remedy that? By becoming arrogant. Okay? I mean, we build ourselves up in a totally unrealistic way because we don't really believe in ourselves. And this is the thing to look at when you see people, either individuals or you look at some of the politicians or different people that are in the public eye. The ones who are bragging about themselves are the people who don't really believe in themselves. Yeah. And how do you cover it up? You paint this facade of I am fantastic. And you lie about what you do all of this. Okay. We know the routine. We see it. Yeah. If you have a correct way of evaluating, what we're capable of doing, what we're not capable of doing at this moment, and we know that we can improve in the future slowly. Yeah. Then we have no need to make ourselves look big because we have the confidence that we can improve, and we don't have the discouragement that comes with expecting ourselves to be more than we are at this very moment. Okay. So when we really have self-confidence, we don't need to impress others in the hopes that if they think we're wonderful, it means we're wonderful. Because you see how it goes together? When we can't evaluate ourselves correctly, we look to other people to tell us who we are. And so if we can impress those people with how wonderful we are, they will tell us, you're so good, you're so rich, you're so talented, you're so beautiful, you're so this, you're so that. We love you, you're fantastic. And because we don't believe in ourselves, if other people think we're wonderful and think we're powerful and gorgeous and rich and whatever it is, then we can believe in ourselves. Not because we can actually assess ourselves, but because we're relying on other people to tell us who we are. Yeah? And that doesn't work so well because not everybody is willing to play that game. And not everybody sees us. We put on this facade. It's the Wizard of Oz facade. And some people believe the Wizard of Oz. And some people are Toto, the little dog that pulls away the curtain and says, you're a big bunch of hot air. You're just some little guy with a lot of machinery trying to make yourself look big. So, when you have real self-confidence, you don't need to make yourself look big to other people because you're not relying on other people to tell you who you are. You can look inside and see, oh, I have these good qualities. That's great. Other qualities, I don't have those so well, but I can develop them, and I have these qualities that I can use right now to benefit people. And so then we aren't reliant on other people to praise us and tell us who we are. And when people criticize us, we don't, get depressed because we know how to correctly evaluate ourselves. Okay? So that's why you see, and the example, the story I keep telling about this one is His Holiness at a conference in Irvine, California, the year that he won the Nobel Peace Prize. I can't remember what year that was, but anyway, it was a while ago. And he was also attending some conference in Irvine where he was the expert of the experts on the panel, and somebody asked a question, and in front of a big audience, His Holiness said, "I don't know." And the room was silent. The expert said 3 words that an expert never says. "I don't know." Yeah. But why could His Holiness say that? Because he doesn't need other people thinking he's wonderful. Yeah. Why does, you know who I'm talking about, need to boast so much? Because there's a lot of confusion and lack of self-confidence inside. Yeah. So the people who act arrogant are they need a lot of compassion. Yeah. And compassion isn't "you're so wonderful, you're so this," That's not how a good display of compassion for those people. But you see, because the story that I tell about the master at Fo-Kuan Shan who organized this whole thing and a pilgrimage at the end, and then was talking about his disciples who helped organize it and praised 2 of them and then completely trashed one monk. This monk's so lazy. He was in charge of this and that. He didn't do it. Why could he do that? That monk was the real practitioner. Yeah, because the master knew that monk wasn't relying on the master's praise to know who he was. Yeah. He could evaluate himself. He could own his own mistakes. He knew what he did that was okay. Yeah. So it's kind of, a good example of how Dharma practice is usually the opposite of what our ego mind does. Well, not usually, always. Yeah? Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. So, what this is pointing to is when we don't feel good about ourselves, to try and evaluate ourselves accurately. What are my talents and good qualities? And what are my faults? But remember, my faults are not who I am. They are not my identity. Yeah. And my good qualities, how wonderful I have them, but they're also not my identity, so I'm not going to get arrogant about them. Yeah. And to do that similar process when we receive praise. And then our mind has the ability to stay, more and more equanimous no matter what happens. And then that's how we build up the inner strength to be bodhisattvas. Yeah. We think bodhisattvas don't get criticized. Wrong. Yeah, they get criticized a lot. Because ordinary people don't understand what in the world they're doing. Yeah. But the criticism doesn't faze them because they have that ability to evaluate themselves.